You stand in the home improvement aisle, staring at two massive metal boxes. One wears the iconic premium Weber badge, demanding a serious chunk of your paycheck. The other is a shiny Nexgrill, flashing a modest price tag and an impressive array of burners. It looks like a steal, but a grill isn't a weekend purchase. It is an investment in your summer ritual. Choosing between them isn't just about spending money. It is about deciding whether you want an appliance that lasts a decade or a flashy machine built for right now. Here is what matters when you break them down. The battle of metal and muscle. When you look closely at how these machines are actually put together, the differences start showing up in the weight of the lid and the stability of the cart. Weber builds their grills with a heavy reliance on thick cast aluminum and porcelain enameled steel. This matters because cooking outside means fighting the elements every single day. The heavy-duty materials hold up against humidity, rain, and intense temperature swings without flaking or rusting through. When you lift the Weber lid, you feel the physical heft of engineering that understands how brutal the outdoor environment can be on bare metal. Nexgrill takes a completely different path by leaning heavily into stainless steel aesthetic. On the showroom floor, the gleaming silver finish looks incredible, mimicking the appearance of a professional restaurant kitchen. The stainless steel used on budget-friendly grills is typically thin, low-grade metal. Over a couple of seasons of high-heat cooking and exposure to winter weather, that shiny exterior can develop surface rust and structural weak spots. It looks great on day one, but it lacks the foundational muscle needed to survive the long haul without meticulous care and a very high-quality cover. The underlying frame tells a similar story. Weber finishes their carts with thick, durable coatings that resist chipping, and they ensure the legs and wheels don't wiggle when you scrub the grates. Nexgrill uses lighter gauge steel for the cabinet walls and shelving, which saves you money up front, but can feel a bit flimsy when you are moving the unit across a bumpy patio. If you want something that feels solid when you slam the lid shut, the physical construction favors the heavier build every time. Firepower versus true heat control. People love to look at the numbers on the box, specifically the British Thermal Units, or BTUs. Nexgrill absolutely wins the numbers game on paper. They pack their fireboxes with massive burner tubes that pump out an incredible amount of raw heat, easily pushing the temperature gauge past 600 degrees in just a few minutes. If your primary goal is to turn the dials to maximum and sear a dozen burgers as fast as humanly possible, that raw power feels great. But high heat is only half the story of a great barbecue. Weber intentionally designs their grills with lower BTU ratings, which sounds like a disadvantage until you understand how they retain energy. Because the Weber firebox is cast from thick material, it acts like an oven, trapping the heat and circulating it evenly across the entire cooking surface. This means you do not get those annoying hot and cold spots where one steak burns while the neighbor stays raw. The heavy porcelain-coated cast iron grates absorb that energy and hold onto it, giving you beautiful sear marks without needing to burn through a massive amount of propane gas. The real test of a grill comes down to flare-ups. When fat drips off a ribeye, you want it to vaporize cleanly to a flavor, not ignite into a grease fire that ruins dinner. Weber uses angled metal bars positioned perfectly over the burners to handle these drippings safely. Nexgrill uses flatter, thinner heat tents that can allow grease to pool, leading to sudden bursts of flame that force you to constantly move your food around the grates. True cooking performance is about control and predictability, not just raw firepower. Gadgets, knobs, and smart grilling. If you appreciate extra features, Nexgrill makes a very compelling argument for your wallet. They understand that people love versatility, so they routinely include side burners for sorting onions, dedicated searing stations, and even infrared rotisserie setups on models that cost less than a basic entry-level competitor. They give you a massive cooking footprint with 5 or 6 independent burners, allowing you to create distinct heat zones for different types of food simultaneously. For a large family gathering, having that much real estate and flexibility is incredibly convenient. Weber approaches technology from a utilitarian perspective, focusing on things that make the core experience smoother rather than adding extra bells and whistles. Their high-end units feature integrated digital thermometers that sync directly to your smartphone, letting you monitor the internal temperature of a brisket from inside the house. Their ignition systems are famously reliable, clicking to life on the first try year after year. They also spend a lot of time perfecting their grease management, creating funnel systems that drop waste directly into a disposable pan instead of letting it coat the bottom of the cookbox. The choice here comes down to what kind of griller you are. If you want a giant Swiss army knife of a machine with a burner for every possible scenario, Nexgrill hands you those features for a bargain. If you prefer a simpler, refined tool where the knobs turn smoothly and the basic systems work flawlessly every single time you press the start button, Weber focuses their budget on perfecting those exact touch points. The cost of a long-term relationship. Every grill works beautifully during its first summer, but the real test begins around year 3 or 4. This is where the warranty and the availability of replacement parts become the most critical factor in your ownership experience. Weber protects their core components with a 10-year warranty that covers everything from the lid to the burner tubes. They can do this because they know their materials will survive the elements, and if something does fail, their customer service department is legendary for shipping out fixes without making you jump through administrative hoops. Nexgrill usually offers a standard 1-year warranty on the overall build, though they sometimes extend the coverage on the actual burners for a few extra years. Because they change their model designs and manufacturing partnerships frequently, finding an exact replacement part for a 5-year-old Nexgrill can turn into a frustrating scavenger hunt. When a heat tent rusts out or an igniter stops clicking on a budget model, you often find yourself looking at a scrap metal heap because the specific fix is no longer in production. With a Weber, you can walk into almost any hardware store a decade from now and find the exact grates, flavorizer bars, or ignition wires sitting on the shelf. You are buying into an ecosystem that supports the product for a generation. Bottom line, if a burner breaks on a cheap grill, you replace the whole grill. If a burner breaks on a premium one, you replace the burner and keep cooking for another 5 years. The final verdict on value. Value is not just about the lowest price tag. It is about what you get for every dollar you spend over the lifespan of the product. Nexgrill offers undeniable upfront value for anyone who needs a large, capable cooking machine right now without breaking the bank. If you're renting a house for a few years, buying a temporary grill for a vacation property, or just dipping your toes into outdoor cooking, spending a modest amount on a high-feature machine makes total sense. You get plenty of cooking space and great versatility for a fraction of the investment. Weber requires a serious financial commitment up front, often costing 2 or 3 times what you would pay for a similarly sized budget model. But when you stretch that cost over 10 or 15 years of reliable service, the math changes completely. You avoid the cycle of buying a cheap grill, watching it rust, throwing it in a landfill, and buying another 1-3 years later. You're paying for peace of mind, consistent performance, and a tool that becomes a dependable backdrop for a decade of family dinners. Think about how often you actually cook outside and how long you plan to stay in your current home. If you want a permanent fixture on your deck that will look and cook the same way 10 years from now as it does today, save up for the investment piece. If you want maximum features for minimum cash today, take the shiny option and enjoy the extra burners while they last.